Thank you.
All right.
Commissioner, what's your name again? Commissioner Zuber, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly, I'm going to try a different order, so pay attention. Commissioner Acharya.
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett, absent. Commissioner Eggenberger.
Yes.
Commissioner Engel.
Yes.
Commissioner Graham-Hudak, absent. Commissioner Okan, absent. Commissioner Perkins, absent. Commissioner Zuber here, and Chairman Green.
I am here. Thank you very much for that. We met last on September 9th. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes from September 9th meeting?
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Eggenberger. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, we have an agenda tonight of one item. Is there anything late to add by staff? Okay, anything by the commission? No, hearing none. Do I hear a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Motion to accept tonight's agenda by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Engel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving right along. The one agenda item we have tonight is a public hearing. It is the Arbor Glen final PDD, where we're considering a final plan development district and preliminary site plan for property which is located north of Warren and west of Ridge Road. Patrick, could you tell us more about it?
Yes, thank you. The proposal before the Planning Commission tonight is both the final approval of the Arbor Glen plan development as well as the preliminary site plan. Both items are subject to a recommendation by the Planning Commission that will then go to the Township Board for final action. The proposal this evening is Arbor Glen, which is a development of 36 single-family residential site condominiums on about 36 acres located at the northwest corner of Warren Road and Ridge Road. One entrance is proposed to the development from Ridge Road. It's on the south part of the site and is about 400 feet north of Warren Road. That will be the one public entrance to the development. In addition, there's an emergency vehicle entrance, which is the far north of the site. That's about 1,675 feet north of Warren. That emergency vehicle access on the north side of the site will be gated and will only be accessible to emergency vehicles, and it will not be available to the public. So any non-emergency vehicles, public vehicles, will all go from that southern entrance. That's 400 feet from the intersection of Warren and Ridge. The project sponsor proposes to pave Ridge Road from Warren Road to the southern entrance to the development. So about 400 feet to that entrance is what the project sponsor proposes to pave. Because the development is a planned development, the project sponsor is required to propose public benefits for the plan and public benefits for both the site and the greater community. The project sponsor proposes the following definite benefits. First, there will be 34% open space, which exceeds the minimum of 25% required. Another is that the sidewalks will be constructed along the west side of Ridge Road from Arbor Glen to Warren Road, including crosswalks across Ridge Road and Warren Road to connect to the existing sidewalk network on the opposite sides of the roads. So this development will connect itself farther south across Warren as well as east across Ridge. Another benefit is that the proposal will preserve about 800 trees that are either protected or landmark trees. Another benefit is that the clearing will be minimized along Ridge Road. The grading will be minimized as well to try to preserve some of the natural beauty characteristics of that road. And finally, the applicant proposes to plant several trees along Warren Road and Ridge Road, which will consist of native species that are consistent with the natural beauty road objectives. In our review letter to the Planning Commission, we have several topics that we cover here. So I'll just read through our letter, starting near the top of page 2, which addresses the traffic impact. Again, the project sponsor proposes to pave the portion of Ridge Road from the development entrance down to Warren Road, about 400 feet. That's a requirement of the general ordinance that requires that any development that makes a gravel road exceed 1,000 trips a day, the gravel portion of the road has to be paved from the development entrance to the nearest paved intersection, which in this case would be Warren and Ridge Road. For the schedule of regulations and modifications, the following modifications to the zoning ordinance are proposed. The lot area is proposed to be a minimum of 16,000 square feet. Most lots are significantly larger, but the smallest lots go down to 16,000 square feet. The minimum lot width will be 100 feet. The minimum front yard setback will be 35 feet. The minimum side yard setbacks will be 15 feet on one side and 25 feet on the other, for a minimum separation distance of 40 feet between buildings. And the proposed rear yard setbacks will be 30 feet for only lots 5 through 7 and lots 27. All of those lots back up to the open space areas. And finally, the wetland setbacks for lots 7, 8, 32, 34, and 35 are proposed to be less than the 25 feet required. Although no lots are proposed in the wetland areas, these lots will have conservation easements on them that will allow for grading and planting in conformance with the plans, but will prohibit structures and other impervious surfaces. Under the natural features, there will be minimum clearing and grading along Ridge Road, which is a natural beauty road. Ridge Road will have only 5 trees cleared in the right-of-way. These trees are a mix of elm, box elder, and cottonwood, so they're not the most desirable species that will be removed. And the landscape plan shows several native species of trees planted along the Ridge Road right-of-way. So there'll be 5 trees removed, but several more added to that right-of-way to enhance the natural beauty characteristics. We've reviewed the landscape plan for the preliminary site plan review, and the landscape plan meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance with the exception of a few labeling and count corrections. Therefore, we recommend that the landscape plan be revised to include those corrections to the labels and counts prior to final site plan review. The last item that, or 2 more items to note. The first is under access management. We did mention the northern part of the site. I'll zoom in on a little bit farther here. Has an emergency access only, so it's labeled as emergency access only. The fire marshal has reviewed the proposed access and has recommended approval of that access. The access is 20 feet wide. It will have a gate at the entrance, and it will taper off as the road curves into the development itself. The last item that we want to discuss is the PD agreement. The PD agreement is mostly complete. We're working with the applicant to complete the final PD agreement, including the schedule of modifications noted on the site plan. We recommend that the final PD agreement be consistent with the township's template PD agreement, which we're pretty close on. We have a few items to go through with the township attorney and the township engineer, but the PD agreement at this point is mostly complete in all other respects. Therefore, our recommendation is approval of the final plan development district, subject to the applicant revising the PD agreement to be consistent with the township PD agreement template, and approval of the preliminary site plan, subject to the applicant revising the plans in accordance with the recommendations above. Those recommendations are corrections to the landscape plans and a specification of the entrance gate at the emergency vehicle entrance. That concludes our report, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. This is a public hearing, which is an opportunity for just that, the public to make expressions or have questions for the developers or the township. So we open it up, and we're going to accept a motion here shortly. We want to say that if you do get up and speak, that you fill out our form so that we know who you are, and then you state your name and address at the podium, and briefly explain why you're here tonight. So with that, do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
All right, we've got a motion to open the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Eggenberger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, is there a developer here? Sir, would you come on up? Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman Green and Planning Commissioners. My name is Mike Knowles. I'm with Diffin Umlor, and I'm representing Pulte Homes of Michigan tonight. I see some familiar faces in the audience. Welcome. We're pleased to be here for our 7th public meeting on this particular project. We're a little over the halfway mark. We still have a public hearing for the Natural Beauty Road to get through, as well as the final construction documents, final site plan to get through. Several of the neighbors have approached me over the course of the last 9 or 10 months as we've worked through the process, and we've been able to work with the neighbors and address some of their concerns. Most of the concerns have been with landscaping and protection of the natural features. This site plan is in conformance with the master plan. There's 36 units on 36 acres. It's a large lot development, so the density isn't very controversial. The landscaping, of course, the preservation of the natural features, we've created buffers along the perimeter of the property to create a nice buffer between our property and the neighboring properties. We've worked with our northern neighbors to change the landscaping plan a couple times to try to get a nice mix of evergreens and deciduous plantings, as we discussed when I visited them at their home. So we were able to do that. We've met with some folks who take a keen interest in the natural beauty aspects of Ridge Road. As do we. I've done quite a bit of research on the Natural Beauty Road, and it primarily is in place to protect the natural features, and most of the state acts and county acts are either in establishing a natural beauty road or vacating a natural beauty road. There isn't really a lot on what we're doing here, which is enhancing a natural beauty road. And as Mr. Sloan pointed out, we're only taking down 5 trees to get our entrance in approximately 400 feet north of Warren Road, but we're planting hundreds of trees. And we're planting trees in the road right-of-way, which is typically not allowed. And we've met with the county on several occasions, and the township has been very helpful to talk to them about how they would like to see us develop Ridge Road, to minimize the cross-section, to keep it more of a rural cross-section so that sort of the natural topography and natural vegetation can remain, along with using native species to replant that area to really enhance it, because the road really is fantastic as you go north from the site. It gets into that real canopy effect that really does make a natural beauty road special, and we hope that some of the enhancements that we make down here will allow that to sort of spread to the south and kind of connect up with Warren Road. So at any rate, I'm here to answer all of your questions if you have any, and again, I'm always open to listen to the residents' suggestions. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, and the fact that you acknowledge that you recognize faces in the audience means that you have been in contact with local residents, and we always welcome and encourage that. So thank you so much for doing that. With that said, are there any comments from the audience that anyone would like to make? Yes, ma'am. You want to come on up?
Hello, my name is Linda Brakey. I live at 7835 Ridge Road. So in terms of the site plan, I'm on the north side, the very north side. And I just wanted to ask, this is a condominium development? I thought it was private homes. It's condos?
It's a site condominium, was basically a subdivision with private roads. Almost all of our new developments in Canton that look like subdivisions are actually site condominiums. So these are all individual single-family homes on individual lots. It's that all the common areas and the roads are private, so it's considered a site condo rather than a subdivision. The county will not own the roads inside the development. Those will be owned and maintained by the association.
The emergency access road that you're going to have, you mentioned having a gate at the entrance, which I assume means on Ridge Road. Is there going to be a gate as well in your development, or is this going to become like a woods walk for them, or a common area? Or is it restricted just to emergency vehicles?
Mr. Knowles, but
Want to address that, Mike? So,
Yes, thank you for your question. We've done them both ways. We're not really opposed one way or the other if the township or the residents have a preference. In this case, I believe we're just having one gate at Ridge Road to prevent cars from going down through there. But yeah, people will be able to walk through the woods and kind of enjoy the woods down through there. But it is an emergency access. It's 20 feet wide. It will be capable of sustaining emergency vehicles and the like. But
so
no,
it's going to be maintained as emergency access, even if after the complex is built out?
Yes, that's right, and that's the reason that it's paved, because we could put a gravel road and satisfy the requirements for an emergency access, but the problem with that is gravel roads don't get maintained as well, snow plowing and that type of thing, to keep them open for emergency access. So it will be maintained as a paved surface,
The
readily
homeowners
accessible.
association will then have to take that on, just like its roads.
Yes, sir, Chairman Green, that's exactly right. They'll have to maintain that in perpetuity.
it's not as wide as the regular road. The regular road internally is 27 feet wide, so it'll narrow down to 20 feet, which is the minimum that fire needs for a fire lane access.
And you can also see sort of the unusual configuration of the curve in that road. One of the things that we worked with staff on was to try to preserve all the best features. There's several really great trees in there. In fact, one of the largest trees on the site is just to the right of that emergency access road. It's a quad silver maple. I think it's a quad 26. It's like 104 inches. It's a really beautiful tree, and we wanted to make sure that we kind of stayed out of its critical root zone and avoid some of the other trees in there. When I met with the neighbors, they were very concerned that they didn't want to see it cleared for the emergency access. And you can also see the little 2 tracks shown on the slide on your screen as well. That's the existing driveway that services the existing house. So we've tried to locate the emergency access road where it's already cleared. And so we've done a lot of things to try to have the least amount of impact as possible, but also to allow emergency access as needed.
My concern with that will be, and I'm just going ahead in future, okay, so this emergency access road is there. What is to prevent that to become just a plain access road for, let's say, Lot 28 to go into their property?
The gate. So the Lot 28 ends right at the end of the road. So that open space is owned in common with all 36 members of the community. That's not part of Lot 28's lot. And there's a gate at Ridge Road. So Lot 28 couldn't say, well, this is my shortcut. I'll cut through my own scenic wooded road, because they just don't have that kind of access.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry, I don't know, how big is 16,000 square feet? What size lot is that?
Well, generally, we started off with 100 by 180 feet, which were 18,000 square feet lots. So if you can imagine a 100-foot lot by 180-foot deep, it's a nice estate-sized lot with that can accommodate a 2 or 3 car side entry garage. So they're not front entry. It's a nice, comfortable lot, deep enough where you can have generous front and rear setbacks and still have room to build a nice size home.
What does that equate to in acreage?
Well, an acre is 43,000, so it's about a little under half.
Between a third and a half, yeah, so, okay.
And I would just ask, I saw some plans from one of my neighbors with some of your plantings, and I'm sorry, can we bring that back?
Go ahead, you can point.
Size? Okay. And I think you were working on some trees, is that here? I'm sorry.
Ridge Road is to the right.
Ridge Road's to the right, okay. So I am,
You're on Ridge Road, right?
this back north side? Is that where the llamas are?
Yes.
If you could
Your house isn't shown on the plans, Linda, so.
Continue the pines until you get to where you left trees. It would be nice to, I would love that to be blocked from my property.
You're to the north of the project?
Yes.
You're,
No,
okay.
she's on Ridge Road. She's,
I'm to the
she's to the north, but she's
I'm
east
set-
of the Llama area, closer to the road.
I'm set back. That's Rose House, I am set back.
Ah.
Junie's next to me, and my house is right, set back a little further, so when I come out, I look.
So you're north of the llamas? Okay, well, the planting they're going to be doing is south of the llamas, so.
She's saying she doesn't want to see the subdivision from her house.
Yes, thank you. I should share this with you, too. This is a plan I did for the rows, and it does show what that landscaping along that line that you're asking about is. And you can see it is a mix of both evergreens and deciduous plantings. They're color-coded here, where you
Yes.
can see the maples, the tulip trees, the white spruce, the white pines, and then at both ends are the existing wooded areas. So exactly what you're describing is exactly what we're planning on doing.
Right, I was hoping there were a few more spruces through here, but
We could absolutely do that. That
Thank
would
you.
not be a problem whatsoever.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
thank you.
Yes, thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am, in the back there. Come on up. Stay close, Mike.
Yep. He wants his steps tonight.
Hi,
Hello.
my name is Sophia Salim, and I'm late for this party. I don't think I'm one of the familiar faces that the builder has seen, and it's all my fault. I don't open my mail often enough, and I did open my mail this last time and saw a letter about this, which sent me in shock. I live on 7586 Haverhill Lane, and I'm not quite sure what it translates to in terms of that, in terms of the lots there or the units there. But we have and we moved in 2 years ago, and I love my home and I love my backyard, and especially the fact that it's a very private backyard. In fact, sometimes early in the morning I can hear the rooster crowing, and I love that. And I just want, I'm just going to ask you in lay language, how are you going to protect my privacy? And I guess in very open terms, like the other lady said, I really don't want to know that there is a subdivision back there. I still want to pretend there are roosters back there somehow. And yeah, so that's my question to you is, I would like to maintain the property value, and I would like to enjoy my backyard. I'd like my kids to play there. I have a bedroom. My master bedroom looks onto that area, and I have great big windows that, look onto the area. So it's really important for me to have.
So you missed the opening dialogue from Mr. Sloan in terms
Yeah.
of what was going to go on.
Apologize for that, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this project, unless, Patrick, if you'd like to go over it again, this project, I am very pleased with how they have really respected the growth that's there and the growth that they plan to add for the buffering. As you can see by the comments so far, this is a big issue for people who have been used to an open area that doesn't have development. And we go through this a lot on the Planning Commission, and we are very much aware that people are losing certain things, and we want the developer to be aware of that as well, and I think Mr. Knowles has kind of gotten that. And we're trying to work through helping you feel good about where you live, as well as allowing him to develop that property. So understand that these comments are well taken.
I work with you offline to see how it affects my property and go from there. 7586?
Do you know what lot number yours?
She's in Hampton Ridge South, which is, these lots are going to be typical and very similar size to your lots. So you're in a subdivision, a site, so it's going to be similar to your development. And he's preserving a big buffer area along his western property boundary. So he can show you more specifically what that will look like, so you can locate it on the map for him.
Do you,
Okay, he can get with you offline after the
Yep.
meeting, so.
what lot number are you, do you know? Ah,
I haven't looked at my lot number, so I'm
There will be a buffer, but yeah.
Okay.
I think the lot, it may be close to some of the lots that are highlighted there on the development. On the far left side of the screen are going to be the lots in Arbor Ridge, or Arbor Glen, that are on the west side of the development. And there's a 30-foot buffer there where there's, the existing vegetation is preserved there. There's no additional trees there just because what's there is being preserved. It's pretty dense wooded area.
It's one of the first homes that starts to become private. The others are more, they have a little bit of a hill, but they're more open. Yeah.
Did you have any other questions?
Okay, that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your comments.
Yeah, just put your,
Yes,
put your thing right in the tray on the counter there, so, yeah, just, there's the speaker's cards can go right in there, thank you.
anyone else from the audience? Oh, yes, sir, come on up.
My name is Paul Anderson. I own the 10 acres just south of the development, and we have met with the builders, and I'm pleased to see that they're willing to accommodate a lot of our desires. If you, could you go to the satellite photo to show the southern edge? The only question or issue I'd like to raise is right along the southern edge of this L-shaped portion here, there's an existing cul-de-sac, kind of paved area. And right now, you have a proposition to put in a lot of trees, which I really appreciate, both on the eastern side of my property, which would be the western side of the southern portion, and then the northern side of the southern portion, the northern side of my property. But there's a strip there that you had sent us in your documentation that showed that you were going to maintain the preserved trees. And there's not a lot of vegetation through this area here. This is our property. Is it possible maybe to get a few more trees, spruce trees just in that area? Because that's exactly where the houses, the 3 houses are set in that lot. And that just might cut down a little bit on the light in the wintertime. So that would be our request. It's then through that area there.
Yes, go ahead, comment.
Thank you for your question. Absolutely, we can do that. One of the things that becomes a challenge when developing a site that's heavily wooded is finding places to replace trees. So if we preserve as many trees as possible and then we preserve the best and oldest species and areas of trees, we can't plant trees in there because we're saving those trees. And then if the remainder of the area is used for utilities, roads, and homes, that's again an area that's not available to plant trees. So we end up in an upside down situation where we have too many trees to replace and not enough room to replace them. So anytime we can find a spot where we can tuck another tree in instead of paying into the tree fund, we'd rather put them on the site. We would rather enjoy them. They become a buffer for the neighbors. They become a buffer for our new customers. So, of course, we have hundreds of trees that we have to plant on the site. It would not be a problem if there's a bare spot in an existing area that's of great concern to you. I think you have my card. Feel free to reach out to me, and we can talk about specific bare spots as I did with the rows, and we'd be happy to accommodate you. It's a very easy concession to make.
I mean, I think realistically, a lot of those replacement trees are going to be field located anyway, based on what you're dealing with. So the landscape architect can only lay out the trees as best he can based on what he knows is out there currently. But when the landscaper actually goes out there, you're dealing with a lot of other issues. And one of the things we need to be concerned with is, okay, you guys are all asking for evergreens, but when you've got a heavily forested area and you've got a lot of existing deciduous trees, evergreens like sun. So it's hard to plant evergreens in where it's shady. The only thing that I know that'll work well there is sometimes white pines like filtered sun, but most evergreens need sun to basically, get established. So, they're going to be better in the open areas, where it's more open to plant. So that's something that I'm sure the landscape, when we come in with a final site plan and you know exactly what you're doing, you can assess which species are going to work better based on, the exposure.
You're
So
absolutely
we
right.
can, so we'll work with that when they come in for final site plan on how to mix up the replacement trees on the site.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, and thank you for the comments on that. Anyone else?
Linda Brakey from 7835, I forgot to ask when the first shovel will go in for site development, and when do you expect, best estimate, that people will start moving in?
That's a good question. I get asked that question a lot, both from my developer clients and from the adjacent neighbors. My best guess at this point is that if everything goes as planned, that will be fully approved by January. We hope to then close on the property over the winter, begin clearing while the leaves are still off of the trees. It makes it much easier to clear trees before they leaf out, and then put a shovel in the ground probably mid-April. That would be the best case scenario. It usually takes on a development, this is kind of a smaller development. It usually takes about 3 months, start to finish, in a development of this size. So call it May, June, July, end of July, it's paved, it's ready to go, open for sale. And then Pulte usually builds homes in between 6 to 10 months. So if the first person buys in July, you'll start to see homes in 2021 being occupied. You're welcome.
Okay, all right. Hello.
Hi, my name is Rich Rao, and we have the longest continuous property line. We are just to the, which way are we? To the north of the subject property. And we, in preparation of this, we planted ourselves about 50 evergreen-type trees. We planted a lot of hemlock and Michigan pines, some arborvitae, and mainly along our driveway, basically to the area where on this sheet says lots 17 and 18. And the trees are doing well. However, there were a number of those trees that didn't survive for one reason or other. We had to have them replaced and so forth. So in a type of situation like this, where the developer is planting trees, if some of them don't survive, what kind of allowance is there made to have these trees replaced, and for how long a time, if they don't survive?
So for standard landscaping, there's a year warranty required. For replacement trees that are gonna, through the tree removal permit, those have to be warranted for 2 years. Mhm. Give them a chance to get, so depending on where they plant, sometimes we recommend, that the trees be, bagged and watered. It depends on what the kind of exposure and what, if they're in an open area, they may need some temporary irrigation, or we require them to be, bagged and watered, during the, hot season to get them going. But that's really up to the developer to determine how they're gonna sustain those trees.
And again, the height of these trees that are going to be planted,
Standard native deciduous and evergreen trees. There'll be minimum, generally, replacement trees have to be 3-inch caliper to 4-inch caliper at planting. Evergreen trees have to be a minimum of 8 feet in height. Okay.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
All right. Anyone else from the audience? Oh, we have a return speaker. Yeah, sir.
Go to the regular site plan. My question is on the utility lines that are running through the, is there anything that's going to be done with that utility line that's running right through the property adjacent to Ridge Road?
Talking about the overhead utilities?
the overhead.
Yeah, so that's a great question. They just had a meeting, one of the initial engineering meetings with Detroit Edison this morning on site. So that's one of the notes that you'll see on the demo plan that staff brought to our attention and said, you know, you got to make sure you have plans for what you're going to do with the overhead utility lines. So all of the overhead utility lines that are on the site will be relocated underground, except for those that feed the adjacent areas, because they really don't like to go underground and then back up again. And so there is one line that you're referring to that kind of goes sort of across where that detention basin is. That's most likely going to be relocated right along Ridge Road right-of-way, and then along that north line, so that that service to the north will continue. But all of the utilities, like on-site, obviously, the northern piece will no longer require service, so that line can be removed and not replaced. The rows, of course, have to remain in service, so that line that runs north of the emergency access road will have to stay in place. And we'll work out the details of that with Detroit Edison, but generally, all of the new homes will be serviced, not generally, absolutely, all of the new homes will be serviced on underground, and wherever there is a connection that cuts through our site, it'll be relocated to the perimeter so that that can maintain.
So you'll actually put a,
So the service lines, the distribution line will be moved to Ridge Road, basically?
That's correct.
Okay. Along Ridge Road. All along Ridge Road. The main distribution line will be all along Ridge Road, just like you'll see along any other county road. Right now, it's in deep right-of-way. That line will be moved over to Ridge Road. The only thing, so anything internally to the site that serves the houses will be underground, but the main distribution line that serves everybody along Ridge Road, currently, it'll be moved to Ridge Road.
so what happens as an example, the two houses in the north that have that going through their property?
That still has to be designed in terms of how it zigzags through there, so.
Yeah, it'll go up to the northern property line, and then it'll go to the existing pole that's on the corner there, and it'll tie back
Same
in.
thing on our side, where it comes back across and meets our property. Will there be another pole put in at that point?
Most
Come
likely,
back up
most
again?
likely there will, yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, folks. Any more comments? All right.
Close the public hearing.
All right, we've got a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Eggenberger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I'm going to go to the commission and basically just, we're going to do a free-for-all. We're not going to call names or anything like that.
Call names,
Any-
don't call us names.
I was going to call names.
We're going to be civil. Since we're dealing with a site plan. That's a bad joke. Anyway, anybody from the commission have anything they want to start with?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the aesthetics, and I'm not sure how much we look at the aesthetics of these elevations that are in here at this point. Is that a little preliminary, or?
Well,
Well, the houses are the houses, so I mean, if you have comments from Pulte on the houses, they'd probably want to hear them now. We're not necessarily approving or not approving the homes.
Okay.
So the houses just need to meet our general, building material standards for the houses, so.
I hope they can improve the aesthetics.
How so?
Well, there's 4 of them in here, and they go from rather stripped down and plain to rather overwhelming and too many materials, but I would have to sit down and really come up with a list of specifically how.
I think if I recall, Pulte said these would be the same houses pretty much that they're building in Westbury and built in Stone Ridge. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so these are the current complement of houses, with maybe a new introduction here or there that are currently being built up along Joy Road.
Were you concerned, Commissioner Zuber, with particular effects or lack of detail, or what was
Well,
it on your mind?
It's, I think that one of the things, so the first elevation in here is really plain and boxy looking.
That
in
would be was it Castleton?
Castleton, yes. And it has, like you pointed out, one window on each side elevation, which is kind of unfortunate. And then, there's arbitrary differences in roof pitches on the front of that one. The second one, I guess, I would have to say is probably my favorite of them, but that's not saying a whole lot. The little dormers on the roof look tiny. The third one, we've got a gable within a gable within a gable. We've got siding, we've got shingles, we've got stone veneer, we've got brick veneer that's on the wood side, all on the front. And it's a pet peeve of mine when we have, and I'm not sure I can explain this without looking at drawings, but when you have that gable on the right-hand side coming up higher than the main ridge line. So from the back, if you scroll down on that sheet, you see a little triangle popping up on the left-hand side of the ridge. To me, that looks funny from every angle, especially from the sides or not looking straight on the house. Just to see, especially if you look at the right elevation on the far left side of that to me, that just looks really funny to have that big gable coming up and popping over the main gable. And then the Deer Valley, again, this one has just so many different materials on the elevation, and I don't know, the arch top windows are just kind of thrown in there. I don't know. It's hard to make subdivision houses pretty, but I've seen some nicer ones.
So these designs, you said that you've already used them. Have any of these 4 designs popped out more than others in terms of consumer demand?
Oh, and can I just, one other thing I think is that the massing, they're all just big. You know, it's a two-story house that's just, I mean, and I realize that they read flat in elevation, but they're big and boxy, but they just look kind of massive. Sorry.
No, that's,
I know you didn't design these,
that's
but-
okay. I'm not the architect, so
Okay.
I don't take personal offense to it.
Good.
What's the approximate square footage of these homes?
They're about 3,000 square feet, 28 to 3,500 square feet, and depending on structural options, they can get up a little bit more than that. In terms of best sellers, generally, it's what we model. You know, whatever we build the model, that generally is the best seller because people can touch it and taste it and feel it, and they can picture themselves.
Taste it
Well,
really?
they don't really taste it. They eat cookies while.
I mean, some
while-
paint colors look good enough to
well,
eat, but.
they might eat some cookies while they wander
okay.
through. But no, generally, it's really it's hard to imagine what something looks like on paper. And in fact, your comments, I was listening to your comments, and these homes look much better in the renderings than they do in the plans. We
Yeah.
have to put the dimension plans in because we have to show that we're conforming with the offsets and the heights and the different types of materials. We're trying to meet an ordinance with this specific
Right.
print.
Okay, Mike, can I make a recommendation? When
Yes.
you come back for final site plan, bring some photographs of actual houses since you're building them already?
Yeah, absolutely,
all right.
That would
absolutely.
help quite a bit.
And just so you know, and people in the audience understand, I am a residential architect, so I can read plans and drawings.
Yeah,
and I can,
clearly from your comments,
So,
you
yeah,
have a
that's-
background in it. But you're right. I mean, photographs really tell a different story. We just did this with a project in another jurisdiction where you look at an elevation on a townhome and it looks just flat as a pancake when you're looking at an elevation, but you see some actual perspective photographs and it's really a cool building. So, a lot of this has to do with personal taste. I mean, I've been building houses from Texas to Minnesota for, almost 3 decades, and people just have different personal tastes. And so they get to pick their brick, and they get to pick their siding colors. And a lot of times you'll go in and you go, oh my gosh, all the houses look the same. And it's because everybody picked all the same colors, And so you can get a big mix, a great mix of elevations. You can offer a ton of different stuff, and it really does come down to personal preference. And so we try to offer a wide enough variety that it's a mix of homes in there, that it can satisfy the differentiation type of ordinances, the non-monotony ordinances, and not having the exact same houses right next to each other. And so we do meet all the ordinances, and we're always trying to improve, and they really have come a very long way over the years. And they have some very nice-looking homes.
While we have Deer Valley up there, maybe you can clarify something for me. I do particularly like the design, what I see of the garage doors, but I'm confused when I look at the front elevation, and I see the garage door on the left, right? And then I look at what would be the left elevation, and you've got a three-car garage situation there. It appears as though that single-car garage door has two sides, there's one in the front and one on the side?
So a lot of times on these master sets, when we pull off the dimensional plans to put on the plan set so you can see all the dimensions, it will illustrate all of the options. In this particular case, that's a fourth car garage. So it has 3 cars side entry, and that's a fourth car bay that's available to drive straight in. So you can drive in the front elevation, and the 2 windows on the garage with the gable over the top are the
just got it
3-car
clarified.
side. So that's where you park your Corvette in the,
No, I understand now, I just got it clarified by our architect.
I think they have
that
some
I'm
of these
looking at two
built in
different elevations.
Parkside. I think they've got this one built in Parkside if you want to
an
see how
optional
that
fourth
looks.
car.
Yeah, okay. It was the fact that we're looking at a two-dimensional drawing, and it looks as if that one garage door on the left on the front elevation is in
Almost the same plane as the front of the house.
Yes, I see.
Instead of
Set
sitting
back,
Yeah,
setback,
it's
yeah.
hard to get that
Okay,
perspective.
Yeah. The other thing that I have is if you go back to, let's go back to Castleton, the very first elevations. It looks like it's one of your simpler designs, but these houses are not that close together. So if they were like 10 feet apart, I could understand why you would limit the side elevations to just one window. But these are far apart, and it would seem to me that you'd have more windows on the sides in a situation like that.
Yeah, I hear you. There are a ton of structural options that are available, particularly on large lot projects. And I agree with you that sometimes the base house that's available to have all these structural options, that are options, can sometimes not have the best architecture on the side unless you start putting some of the structural options are, and it really starts to the one-story conservatories and the side rooms that you put on really can jazz that up. And then you also have to take a look at the layouts inside on where you
And where the rooms
where
are
you
and
need
whatnot.
to have solid walls, where you have bathrooms, where you have kitchen walls that need to be solid, where you have garage walls, those types of things start to play into it. And you start to run into, I've had homes where they had so many windows that you couldn't put any furniture in it because they were always putting something in front of a window.
Front of a
So
window, I understand that.
there's a
That's
lot going
challenge.
into that.
I
mix.
just get concerned when development comes in with pretty set designs that the cookie cutter type of thing, this is Canton, and I feel like we deserve better and more detail in some instances and more quality. So I would hope that that would be the push as we go forward with this, that these designs maybe need a little bit more embellishment. And I think that's what Commissioner Zuber, who is an architect, was getting at, is that, we want more. We don't want same old, same old. So, with that said, I will leave I do have one other question in terms of.
Mike, is Pulte planning on introducing any new models that they haven't built in the other subdivisions? so
I
far?
have not been made aware of any new models, Jeff, but they always are offering new stuff.
Okay.
They're constantly in development, they have hundreds of plans, and, it just all matters, what's selling at the time, are people looking for more? They'll option a bunch of stuff to be able to add brick to the belt or brick wainscot to make the side elevations a little bit better, and structural options, and they're always developing new plans and improving on those, but I don't know about their prototypes right now, Jeff.
Okay, all right.
My next question would be about Ridge Road, and maybe I missed the explanation on this. So Ridge Road right now, at that level above Warren, is not paved, correct? Okay, so, but they're required to pave the section around the entrance.
From
Warren
the intersection
to-
to their entrance, right?
Okay, but then the rest of it remains unpaved?
Right. We only wanted to pave the minimum of the natural beauty road that we needed to pave to get them in and
Gotcha.
out of their development.
Fine.
And that's normal. Our ordinance basically requires, when paving is required, it goes from their entrance to the nearest paved road. So at some point in time, based on the increasing traffic along Ridge Road, you know, especially as Canton Township's paves Ridge Road next year, or starting later this year and into next year, you know, south of Warren Road, that's going to increase the traffic on Ridge Road.
Right.
So at some point, you know, the township and the county may have to look at paving the remainder of Ridge Road, you know, all the way up to Ann Arbor Road. So at this point, though, they're basically just exceeding the threshold for paving, and they've agreed to pave it as part of their development. So that's 400 feet that the public will not have to pay for.
Well, you know, and I understand those rules and regulations. I get concerned with the terminology of natural, when it comes to natural beauty road,
Well-
and it becomes anything
Well,
but natural.
The Natural Beauty Road is essentially, you know, as Patrick explained before, is there to basically protect overclearing the right-of-way and maintaining the native vegetation along, you know, and within the right-of-way area. And this particular area, if you remember at the preliminary PDD, there's not a whole lot of vegetation along this section of road, especially on their side. So there wasn't any clearing that was done when the subdivision to the east went in along that area, but their subdivision entrance is further north. So what we've been working with the county on doing is reducing the width of the cross-section that they have to use. So instead of clearing 60 feet, they may only have to clear 30 feet, you know, in terms of widening out the existing, you know, road. So I'm not sure exactly what the cross-section will look like, but we're trying to limit, you know, the impact of the ditches and then replanting in the right-of-way, and excluding and getting rid of the sidewalk along most of Ridge Road where we don't need sidewalk because that would require additional clearing, and use that area to plant trees. I am concerned about the final location of the DTE service line and how that might impact our ability to plant regular shade trees within the right-of-way area. So we'll have to look at the influence on that when we look at the final landscape plan along the west side of Ridge Road for what they're doing to enhance the right-of-way area, because we
Okay.
can't plant trees under the lines, obviously, so.
And sidewalk will be, because that's a requirement, will be in the areas where the development begins and ends, along Ridge and along Warren? Sidewalks along,
Just down to the corner.
down.
Shown
yeah.
in orange.
We're just trying to connect to the existing crosswalks where there's existing sidewalks.
Okay, so nothing along Warren to the west?
Correct.
There's a heavy wetland there along Warren, and there's no sidewalk that continues on that side of Warren there. So to go through
Isn't
the
that usually a
sidewalk.
requirement, though, in terms of development, to have sidewalk, at least
Well-
as far as the,
In a traditional suburban area, but this area is rural, and there aren't any sidewalks out there except along Ridge and along Warren to the east. So we're
Right.
trying to make connections to those existing sidewalks and not take sidewalks to the west or north if we don't have to.
gotcha, okay. I think that's pretty much all I have. Anyone else?
Thanks for all the information, and I'm really pleased to see that you have gone to the residents. I know the previous board meeting 2 weeks ago, one of the developments we looked at hadn't, and there were a lot of unhappy residents there, so it's very good that you've been working with them. It's good, in terms of the road funding, this is going to be a private road, so Jeff and Patrick, how does that work? What percentage of funds have to be set aside? Is there a requirement so that they make sure that they have enough to maintain their roads?
That's up to their condominium association. I believe by state law, they have to do a 10% reserve out of their budget every year. Whether or not that takes care of maintenance of all their common areas, but that's up to them to do a reserve study and to put money aside every year for any kind of, common area improvement or maintenance.
And we did touch on the traffic a little bit. I'm just wondering, so if this does increase traffic, which we know paved roads usually do, and what did the county say about the road count? Because it was right there at 900 in terms of increasing over that.
Well, the traffic study, you have the information on the traffic study, Patrick, so.
Yeah, the future projected traffic was over 1,000. And so the paving would be required by our local ordinance, which requires that if there's traffic from a development that will exceed 1,000 trips a day, which in this case it would. I think the measured traffic was between 900 and 1,000, so the proposed development would bring it over 1,000. if that's the case of going over 1,000, then the adjacent gravel road would have to be paved from the development entrance to the nearest paved intersection.
Then,
So in terms of future traffic, we know it's going to be over 1,000. We don't know
Right.
how much based on what we do to the south and how much that increases traffic to the north.
how often will, I mean, so we'll look at developments to the south, but at what point, how often does the county measure that? Like, if it does increase greatly, over 1,000 quickly?
The county never looks at anything.
Well, when we ask them to come in and tell them the traffic's increasing.
I mean, basically, we're the gatekeepers for the county's roads essentially. So as development comes in, we're the ones that are checking to see what condition the road's in and how much traffic is on them. So if we have no more development that comes in on Ridge Road North, and I don't know that we will have any of any consequence other than it's a small private road here or there, like we have further north, then we won't never have another traffic study. When conditions get to a certain point where the county can't maintain the road any longer, just like we did for Ridge Road south of Warren, that's when, as I mentioned, that's maybe something that the county and the township then have to talk about on if and when the rest of Ridge Road will have to be paved up to Ann Arbor Road. So, part of that goes into Plymouth Township, but, that's the nearest paved road is Ann Arbor Road, to get up to Joy Road to get to the high school complex. So, and that's what we're seeing a lot is, after school, we're seeing a lot of school traffic.
Yep.
Even the buses use Ridge Road to Joy to get to the high school complex.
Right.
So we see a lot of after-school traffic on that road and morning traffic on that road.
Okay, so I guess another point we'll have to watch there. What about construction traffic then? All of it's going to go just into that entrance?
Correct. No construction traffic will be using the emergency access for access to the site, just over the course of constructing the improvements that go down there. There's also a water main loop connection that goes down through that emergency access road area that will have to be constructed through there, but that will not be the access point for construction.
Then you'll pave the road after the construction is complete within the neighborhood, correct? Okay, so we won't have a lot of heavy trucks going up out there.
Well, they'll have to get the base of the road will go in, and then when they're to a certain percentage of build out, then we require them to repair the road and cap it, so.
It's interesting, you had mentioned an ordinance. I'm just wondering, a non-monotony ordinance?
Sorry?
You said a non-monotony ordinance.
Yeah, so, all the different municipalities have their own non-monotony or, anti-monotony ordinances. In Canton, you've got certain requirements that are offsets. Everyone's got their own little architectural design specifications that you have to comply with. And so that sort of drives how many homes and how many elevations on each home developers offer so that they can comply with those types of ordinances.
Don't have that, do we?
No, we have other architectural guidelines in terms of, material makeup. We require offsets in the back so the backs aren't all flat, because essentially Pulte offers a base house that doesn't have a sunroom or anything off in the back. So in most communities in Pulte, if you went into Pulte, you could get a house with a flat back on it because our ordinance requires an offset. So there's a change in the roof line or in the elevation line. They have to make one of those options standard, or the residents have to pick one if it's not standard. So we don't have a non-monotony ordinance. A lot of times, developers will put that information, that architectural guideline in their covenants and restrictions or in their master deed, and then that's then as they sell houses, they have to
Self-impose
ensure
it
there.
sometimes. Certain builders will self-impose that because customers will come and they'll build their house of their dreams, and then the Smiths, let's call them, and then the Joneses come next door and they build the exact same house of their dreams, and it bums out the Smiths, that the Joneses, or maybe it's keeping up with the Joneses. I guess one or the other. Either way, a lot of times we'll police that because customers just get upset if somebody comes and builds the exact same house right next to theirs.
Like one way they would do that, if somebody picked the same elevation, it would have to be done in a different brick or a different siding color, or it might have to have a different porch design or something so that it looks slightly different, so.
You have a scheme which then would vary, let's say, the side that the garages are on, and things of that nature to keep
No,
the-
typically the garages are on the high side of the lot for good engineering. And so we really don't like to flip the garages unless we absolutely have to. Sometimes customers will have preferences whether they're feng shui, or they'll have a certain preference for light in their kitchen, or they'll have a religious preference that requires certain architectural restrictions or configurations, I should say. And then we'll sometimes go against those engineering practices. You can make them work, but it creates other issues. But other than that, we keep the garage on the high side, the driveway on the high side of the lot, to make all of the rest of the plot plan engineering work out.
So we could expect that the garage on Lot 33 and the garage on 4, even though they're facing each other and across the street, the garage will be then on the northeast or northwest side of the house? You know, in other words, it would be on the open space side.
The final site plan will have a garage plan for it because we need to know for water services where they're putting their garages. So when they come in with their final site plan, there's usually a garage handing plan in terms of what side of the house the
Yes.
garage is going to be on.
Yeah, and that'll be determined by the road profiles, because we'll have, if you're going uphill, it being on the high side, it's always away from you, and then as you hit a high point in the road and start to go down towards a set of catch basins, now the low side is going away from you, so now they're towards you. So occasionally you do get garage to garages as you shift your road profiles from high points to low points.
Okay.
Now, a lot of times we recommend, Greg, that the lots that are adjacent to the entrance have their garages on the opposite side, so we're
side.
not looking at the garage
Right.
doors from the main road. But
Right.
here you
Okay.
won't see anything.
I always say, I wish every development could start with an uphill. Makes it look so much nicer.
Okay. Anyone else from the commission?
Good.
Well, do I hear a motion then?
Sure. I move to recommend final approval of the Arbor Glen Planned Development District on said tax parcels as provided in the planned development agreement and plan documents, subject to the applicant revising the PD agreement to be consistent with the township PD agreement template, which we didn't talk about, but further, I move to recommend approval of the preliminary site plan for Arbor Glen, which includes 36 single-family residential site condominiums on approximately 36.02 acres, as proposed, subject to the conditions of PDD approval and all of the recommendations above.
Do we need to continue, or to add to that, to continue, as you have already done, working on landscape issues such as were brought up tonight, or just working with staff on those kinds of things?
You don't need to include it in the motion. We'll evaluate that at final site plan.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Eggenberger. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, seeing none. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Graham-Hudak?
Yes?
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes. Thank you for working with us tonight, and thank you to the audience tonight for participating with us on this journey.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have some referrals to give to staff. Berkshire Apartments preliminary PDD and Farbman minor PDD. Fillmore Place preliminary PDD. Do I hear a motion to send that to staff?
So moved.
Support. Got a motion by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Engel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we also have a public hearing to set for November 4th, the Greatland Real Estate rezoning. Do I hear a motion to set that public hearing?
So moved.
All
Support.
right, we've got a motion by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Engel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Oh, also, wait a minute, that also
Planning Commission
included
meeting.
Canton Banquet and Convention
Oh.
Center,
Oh,
right?
Right, it's on there.
Okay.
add that to the
So
motion.
add that to the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's what happens when it's on a different page. Okay, we have the 2020 Planning Commission meeting dates. I do have a question on one date. I believe it is June.
June the 8th.
Why not the 1st? That's the first Monday. Was
Must
there
be a
a
reason.
particular reason?
If you want it on June 1st, we can have it on June 1st.
It's just this first Monday. I mean, I have no problem with it being on the 8th, but I just didn't know if there was a particular, issue with that date.
He just wants to know the reason.
I don't know, Connie, and I need to take a look at it, so it may be a typo. It should be the 1st.
Should be the first? Okay. All right, anybody else have anything?
September's is also not the first, but I assume that's Labor Day.
Right, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Right, yep. That one I could figure out.
Yeah, I mean, 7/6, the July one is, 2 days after the holiday, so as long as nobody has a conflict with that, we'll just do it like we would normally do it, so.
So we don't need to,
Just include the motion to change 6/8 to 6/1, so.
all right, do we have a motion to change that?
Support, second?
Did you just make a motion?
But she supported.
Make a motion?
Who makes the
I'll
motion?
move to approve the agenda for committee, for the meetings, the meeting schedule for 2020 with one change, and that would be to change 6/8 to 6/1 unless there's a really good reason that it's 6/8. Just saying.
No, it's okay.
He supported
All
it.
right, we got a motion by
Pre-supported it.
Commissioner
It is-
Zuber and support by
it's
Commissioner
unanimously
Graham
supported,
Hudak.
really.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Unless, with staff, do you have anything else you want to talk about? Any
No,
new-
sir.
New projects coming along?
Got a lot of projects coming in. They're
Motion
just
to
not ready
adjourn.
for you yet.
Yeah, not ready, okay, okay.
A motion to adjourn.
I hear a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I didn't think so.
No,
All
yeah.
right, good night,
Is anyone
everybody.
really going to say?